Donald Trump announced a new executive order aimed at public education and what he refers to as re-implementing patriotic curriculum. Let's take a look.
We must clear away the twisted web of lies in our schools and classrooms and teach our children the magnificent truth about our country. We want our sons and daughters to know that they are the citizens of the most exceptional nation in the history of the world. A perfect example of critical race theory was recently published by the Smithsonian Institution. This document alleged that concepts such as hard work, rational thinking, and the nuclear family and belief in God were not values that unite all Americans, but were instead aspects of whiteness. This is offensive and outrageous to Americans of every ethnicity, and it is especially harmful to children of minority backgrounds who should be uplifted, not disparaged. Teaching this horrible doctrine to our children is a form of child abuse.
What? Okay, so this is a response to the 1619 Project. And to be clear, I think that there have been some interesting critiques of that project, but at the heart of it is education and awareness about this country's history, our history with slavery, a perspective that some might disagree with, but nonetheless, it's a perspective that the Trump administration and conservatives have been having a collective temper tantrum about since its inception. Now, Trump has no power over the curriculum of public schools on a state level. It's really up to the states to make that decision. While public universities are certainly funded in part by federal taxpayer money, the truth is the vast majority of funding for public schools comes from a local level. So Trump is threatening to do away with federal funding to public schools, but again, the majority of that funding does come from a local level with things like property taxes, for instance. What this is to me, despite how terrifying his rhetoric is there, is more political posturing, more political theater. This is the red meat that Trump's base is obsessive about, but it shouldn't take away from what the message is here. And the message is terrifying because it's like something you would hear Kim Jong-un give a speech about, right? Just like this notion that we're the best, we've had no flaws, we've done nothing wrong. How dare you try to educate kids about our history with racism and slavery? It's unacceptable. We're the best, we're the biggest. There's no country that's even big. That's what we're hearing from Donald Trump.
Yeah, so first of all, on the substance of it, critiques around the edges of 1619, and there's nothing wrong with that. And if it turns out that there isn't something that the overwhelming majority of historians agree with, and you want to say, hey, I don't know that I want to teach that in schools because we don't have quite the consensus we need around that particular portion of it, no problem. And no reasonable progressive would ever say, no, I want you to teach things that aren't true. It's laughable. No, we only want to teach things that actually happen, unlike the right wing. We don't care to do propaganda. That's for fascists. So, but the core of 1619, the overwhelming majority of 1619 is excellent. And now look, I cover this stuff for a living and I still learn some things from 1619. And when you, especially the segment on how it affected the economy and how large a piece of the economy slavery was. So it's like getting rid of several of our largest industries. So people didn't want to let go of it because they were just simply making too much money off of it. And so they knew it was deeply, deeply immoral. So they did it anyway. And so these are indisputable facts that are not only important to know about our history and a giant portion of our history, but it's also really interesting for context so that you learn about history overall so that you could interpret it on your own. Oh, those are the different dynamics that went into slavery. It wasn't just, hey, all those folks were evil, etc. No, once you built an economic system around it, it became so hard to end that economic system because of the people who are relying on it. And so, by the way, you can look at that and say, wait, are you making excuses for it? No, absolutely not, neither does 1619. But it gives you important historical context. That is for intelligent people who actually care to educate kids in the right way. But that's not what Trump cares about. As Anna pointed out, this is obviously, of course, all about politics. But when you look at that, think about the political message he's sending. So he has no leg to stand on from the point of view of substance, education, policy, etc. But on the political front, he's going out of his way to insult all African Americans in the country, saying, basically, what's the big deal about slavery? We don't need to cover that. Okay, it affected you guys, it didn't affect us. It embarrasses us a little bit. By the way, it doesn't embarrass me, it doesn't embarrass Anna. I hope it doesn't embarrass a lot of you guys. You know why? Because you didn't do slavery. And first of all, a lot of our ancestors didn't do slavery, but so what if you're in a group that your ancestors did? You didn't do it. So you have nothing to be embarrassed about. It's history. If you're German now, you don't have to keep apologizing for what the Nazis did. That wasn't you, okay? For the people who are saying, "Oh, I am embarrassed. I don't like that. I don't want people to know about what happened there." You give yourself away. You're basically owning it. You're basically saying, I'm on that side. So I don't want you to find out about what people I have kinship with, like political, ideological kinship with, did. I want to bury that news. And the final irony is, Trump says, "Oh, we can't get rid of the Confederate general statues. That'd be like wiping away our history." Then he turns around and goes, "Now make sure you wipe away our history. Don't teach about slavery, but tell people about the heroism of Confederate generals and Ku Klux Klan leaders." Well, he sent a message that is not a dog whistle. It's a sound cannon, and it's booming across America. That is basically saying, if you're a racist in America, vote for me, I'll be your racist president.
And final thing about this, because it's important to know the details. One of the many reasons why I think this is nothing more than political theater is because Donald Trump announced that he's going to be signing an executive order on this. Again, even if he does sign an executive order on it, he doesn't have any jurisdiction or power over how states decide to develop their curriculum for these schools. But on top of that, when he was asked, "Okay, great. So when are you exactly planning on signing this executive order?" He wouldn't answer that question. He wouldn't commit to a specific date. So this is just Trump feeding into racial tensions and division in the country. And I also want to note that he referred to curriculum that really frames the history of racism in this country and slavery. He referred to it as toxic propaganda. So this is Trump's red meat to his base. That doesn't mean I'm trying to minimize it. I just think that it's important to understand that while he certainly does have his racist tendencies, while he certainly would want to implement brutal racist policies, there are certain things that he does not have control over, including how states develop their curriculum.